Welcome to my channel. This is Andrew Luis TV. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel. Greetings from Washington, D.C. I'm here in the cherry blossom trees during springtime. Behind me is the Potomac River. I'm stepping foot on a reclaimed area here at the banks of the Potomac River. Behind me is a cherry tree. They are gifts of friendship from the then mayor of Tokyo City, Ozaki, on March 27, 1912. Now, watch this. Did you know the cherry blossom trees started around as early as March 15 during the start of spring break here? On April 4, it reaches its peak bloom up to 70%. It will last for 14 days if the weather conditions are in good condition. So this is an annual event here in Washington, D.C. So these are the cherry trees behind me, which started to reach its peak bloom around 70%. Because it's still very cold here, the weather this week is near winter conditions, so the blooming cherry trees might have affected its growth. Last year I was here and the cherry blossom peak was around 90 to 100%, and these trees are full with beautiful flowers of different colors. Some pink, some white. I hope you are enjoying my vlog today, the cherry blossom trees. I'm standing on a reclaimed land near the banks of the Potomac River behind me. This reclaimed land is in between Arlington City in Virginia and Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. On that other side, and there is a bridge connecting Washington, D.C., is the George Washington Memorial Bridge connecting to Arlington, Virginia over there. Arlington City is the most developed city near Washington, D.C. because Washington, D.C. itself is the capital is mostly for tourist attraction and government offices, and businesses are all located in Arlington, Virginia. Arlington, Virginia is like a mini Washington, D.C. because it is the nearest financial center in D.C. So over there, okay. Now we move over here to see some of the blooming cherry trees here. You see there are many tourists coming here in DC because it's the capital, and it's springtime. After winter, the pandemic is not anymore a risk because of the overwhelming vaccines. Many people are vaccinated here, so people are now traveling during springtime. You see, there are many tourist buses here. So every springtime, these cherry trees bloom. And after they reach their peak, they will last for 14 days before they wither away, if the weather conditions are good. If not, the number of days might be reduced. Here, there's a marker. These Canadian maple trees were gifted by Canada to the people of the United States. So, they have not bloomed yet, these maple trees. Also, here is a cherry blossom tree. Let's walk here. It's very beautiful, it's very relaxing, and it's stress relieving too. So this is a beautiful spot behind me, some of the cherry blossom trees. Okay, so people are traveling, relaxing during springtime, and the pandemic is all gone, if not because of the overwhelming vaccines. And the only risk and people's worries are the war in Ukraine, although it is thousands of miles away from the United States of America. However, due to economic and growing humanitarian concern, people are worried if the war will go beyond the borders of Ukraine. Let's walk around and see the other cherry blossom trees. As I watch some of the YouTube videos about the Ukraine war and the Netflix documentary on Ukraine's revolution, I learned many things about what's happening in Ukraine and between Russia and Ukraine. You see, in 2016, former Ukrainian President Lukashenko was a pro-Russian president. So he was removed and replaced by a revolution, and through elections, democratic elections, the now president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, won. He is a famous comedy actor turned politician because of people are fed up with the political corruption in Ukraine, in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. However, the president of Zelensky was a pro-Western, pro-European, and pro-US. So Russia worried that they're starting to lose Ukraine and many of its former Eastern European allies, part of the former Soviet Union during the Cold War, when the US and the Soviet Union divided the world into East and West after the Second World War, when Germany and Japan were defeated in that Second World War. So only Ukraine remained. The border of Ukraine is very strategic because it's very mountainous, and Russia needs it to protect its border from its worries that NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was built after the Second World War to protect the Western European democratic countries from the communist threat by the Soviet Union, and like much of the other countries like Romania, Hungary are now part of the European Union and in the NATO alliance, Ukraine was applying for its membership in the European Union and NATO. However, the former President Lukashenko, because he is pro-Russian, so he did not heed the calls of the millennials, people in Kiev, which were protesting in the streets, and he used the threat and force. And many people were also killed there during that revolution. And of course, what followed next is the people and the military united against the government, and another elections took place, and now President Zelensky won. And because during those time, going back to the Cold War, when the United States and the Soviet Union were competing and dividing the world between the East, the Communist East, and the Democratic West, there was a Warsaw Pact. After 1945, when NATO was organized in 1950s, the Warsaw Pact, this is a military alliance between the former Eastern European communist countries and the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. So it is an alliance against NATO. But when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1989 through a revolution and a military coup that forced former president of Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, to step down and open up the market economy of the Soviet Union, and that led to political and economic reforms. In 1991, the former Soviet Union disintegrated into 15 sovereign nation states. One of that is Georgia, Belarus, and Ukraine, and Russian Federation right now. So Boris Yeltsin became the president, the new president. This was during the years of President Bill Clinton in the United States, around 1991. So 2 years ago, Russia annexed Georgia, and years before that, they annexed a part of the Ukrainian land called the Crimean region, the Crimea, which is strategic because it's near the Black Sea or the Baltic Sea. And now because Russia has already invaded Ukraine, Ukraine lost almost 90%, if not more, their coastal waters in the south. Because in the west and in the north, it's mountainous and it's near Poland. So Ukraine is between, strategically, in the east, Russia, and in the west, Poland. So it is very strategic. So because Russian Federation has lost its clout from its former Eastern European communist satellites, which are now pro-Europe, pro-European Union, and part of the NATO alliance, like Poland. So Ukraine is following their steps and wants to go west also. So whatever is going in the head of President Putin of Russia, he invaded Ukraine and used the argument that the two renegade regions of Ukraine, Luhansk and Donetsk, Putin is using that argument that Ukraine, its military and the government are committing genocide in those regions who wants to declare independence. So that is why Russia, according to Putin, undertook a special military operation to liberate the two renegade regions which are pro-Russian, Luhansk and Donetsk. So this Russia's excuse, which quote-unquote a special military operation to invade Ukraine. However, they went out with these renegade regions after taking over these regions, and they are now occupying 90% of Ukraine, and they are still invading, attacking, taking control of the three biggest cities, the capital Kiev, Kharkiv, and Mariupol. And many, if not hundreds and thousands of innocent civilians are killed and became casualties of war. So that is the reason or an excuse by Putin and Russia to invade and attack Ukraine. Okay? Which is a dumb excuse. Okay, so now you see the going back to the cherry blossom trees. So according to the National Geographic Society, it has reached its peak bloom at 70% on April 4, and this will last until 14 days if the weather conditions are good. If not, the days might be numbered from now on. So we don't know if these cherry trees will blossom more than 70% after its peak bloom, because as I told you, the weather here is still near winter conditions. It doesn't feel spring yet because it's very cold, but because the sun is rising up and it's very sunny, it looks like spring, but it feels like winter here. That is how I will describe it. I will repeat. It looks like spring now, but it feels like winter here in the DMV area, or the District of Columbia, Washington, and Virginia, Maryland. So I've been living here since 2019, so almost 3 years. I hope you're enjoying my vlog. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel by hitting the right bottom of your desktop screen. So behind me, these are the maple trees as Canada's gift to the people of the United States. But they are still, because it feels like winter, they are not blooming yet, these maple trees. Only some of the cherry trees are at its bloom peak, around 70%, according to the National Geographic Society. Here, this cherry tree might have bloom peak at 90%. If you see, it's full peak bloom, almost peak bloom. So when they planted the cherry trees since 1912, and they have maintained it over the decades and century, you see, when they created this reclaimed land near the banks of the Potomac River, which is behind me. Okay, behind me is the Potomac River. So this is a reclaimed land, cherry trees, which is become an annual tourist attraction during springtime here. People across the United States and all over the world come here to visit and enjoy the beautiful cherry blossom trees, which is soothing to their eyes, relaxing, stress relieving, and you can go there here. Family reunion, family gathering, boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, picnic. There's many things to do here. This is a whole wide field, a meadow, and a meadow surrounded by cherry blossom trees. What a beautiful sight today. You can play here, you can run here, you can tumbling, okay? I hope you're enjoying my channel. It feels like winter, but it looks like springtime. That's what I will call this. It's very weird weather, and it's a very weird world. Behind me are the cherry blossom trees here in Washington, D.C., here in the reclaimed land, near the banks of the Potomac River. This reclaimed land was built in the 19th century to form part of the capital, Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a swamp. It began as a swamp, and parts of Arlington City in Virginia and parts of Maryland in Prince George's County were donated to become part of now the capital, Washington, D.C. District of Columbia. Behind me is the National Mall, and you see the landmark, the famous landmark of the National Mall is the George Washington Monument. I hope you enjoy my channel about the history of the cherry blossom trees and the Ukraine crisis. This is Andrew Luis TV. Greetings from Washington, D.C. YOLO, you only live once.